Despite a ceasefire being declared over a week ago between rival armies in Sudan, gun violence and attacks have persisted for a number of days. Nonetheless, we're told that peace talks are underway in Saudi Arabia. While some people, mostly immigrants, have been evacuated out of that country, others have fled to neighboring Egypt for refuge. A small number of people have, however, opted to remain in the capital, Khartoum, and hope to keep themselves and their homes safe. One such resident is Tagreed Abdin, who's also an activist and joins us now via our telephone line for a sense of what else is taking place there. Tagreed, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us. Perhaps take us through how the last couple of hours have fared in a context where I understand that ceasefire is technically meant to still be in place.
Good morning. You know, right now, while I'm holding this call, I can hear shots being fired outside. So the fact of the matter is that there is no effective ceasefire in place. The electricity has been out since early this morning, and it's been out for several hours over the past few days. So the status that we have right now is that people are trapped at home with little to no electricity. In some places, they don't even have running water. And bullets are being fired, and there are still what seem to be military maneuvers being carried out inside Khartoum city.
Sure. In that context, what does surviving look like? I mean, I presume you're among people who have to leave home only when it's absolutely necessary, and that means there's several concessions you need to make about how to even run your home.
You know, it's been very challenging regarding just the pure logistics of it all. I mean, a few people made a dash for it in the early days, just when they sensed that it wasn't going to be safe. We opted to stay because we felt that we were safe, secure in our home, and we had enough supplies to tide us over for a good time. So the thing is, for us, we leave the house, like you said, only when it's purely necessary. Electricity is a challenge because we live on the 6th floor, so that means no running elevator. But we have managed to get supplies a few times from the corner shop and from a nearby local market.
Sure. How much longer do you reckon you'll be able to stay in Khartoum if the situation persists?
We really hope that we can stay for as long as possible, you know, until this is actively resolved. I mean, that's our intention, to stay in place right now for several reasons. Basically, safety and security regarding the danger of leaving your house and other logistics considerations.
Yeah, if you had to leave, do you have any idea where you'd be headed?
Most people headed to the northern border, either to Haifa or Port Sudan, towards moving on to Egypt. For our family, this is a challenge because males between the age of 16 and 50 require an entry visa, and my eldest son and my husband fall in that category. So the thing is, we can't just run to Egypt. We'll have to find a place to stay and obtain entry visas for them. We're reading first-hand accounts that this is very challenging, with some people taking 10 to 15 days just to obtain that visa. And while they're staying in these cities that we can say that they have very limited services and infrastructure, either Port Sudan or Haifa, people are facing challenges just to find a place to stay while waiting for these visas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've already mentioned to us that the current ceasefire doesn't seem to be bearing any fruit because as you were holding the line, you could hear several gunshots. But it's one of many others that have been put in place. And I can't help but wonder if the previous ceasefires made any difference.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, there has never been a day in our home where we didn't hear the sound of shelling or airstrikes or anti-aircraft weapons. There has not been a single ceasefire that has actually held since the beginning of the fighting on April 15th.
This has obviously captured the attention of international audiences. In fact, the United Nations has weighed in several times calling for cool heads. That doesn't seem to have worked, you know, at that very high multilateral level. I wonder from grassroots levels where you're at in Khartoum, what you reckon it'll take to finally bring about a semblance of stability.
I think the only thing that will get us towards a semblance of civility, like you called it, would be international pressure, because local pressure, national pressure, the strain on the Sudanese people, it doesn't seem to be registering with the warring parties. The thing is that the fighting is taking place within residential neighborhoods. I mean, it's not in like some distant area. We live in an area where an apartment building 3 doors down from us was shot with an anti-aircraft missile, and the apartment burned, and the lady died. So that's where I'm staying right now, in the compound where we live. I don't know if you can hear the sound of the gunfire that's going on right now.
Yeah, I actually can.
Yeah. So the thing is, we need more pressure, and we need more active resolutions that can help the Sudanese people. I mean, actively lobby for visa waivers, evacuation corridors, things that can really help us as Sudanese either to flee the violence or to get what we need to stay in place. Here at home, I mentioned my husband, I have 3 teenage boys, and my elderly mother is with us. So just the pure logistics of undertaking a 5-day land route to safety is unfeasible for us. My sister is on her way to Cairo. She's been on the road for almost 2 weeks now because they had to stop to get visas for her children. So our family, we can't undertake that. I mean, it's just not feasible for us.
Tagreed, it is absolutely remarkable that you're able to even, maintain any kind of calmness as you speak to us, considering the shelling that I could also hear taking place behind you there. You also mentioned that you stay on the 6th level of the current building you're in.
Yeah.
Are you not worried about, that means you're open essentially to any kind of target in the air potentially and on the ground?
Yeah, well, the calm that you hear this evening, I have my panic attacks. I get worried. There are some moments when, like we all pile up in the middle of the house. But right now, at this moment, for example, while I'm at the window, I can see that there's nobody firing towards our apartment building. Okay, so that's why sometimes there's a semblance of calm that you might perceive, but at the same time, like last night, it's like everybody will stay in the living room until this tide's over. So the thing is, the reason that I feel that the need to speak is that we really need, support that we can use. I mean, raising awareness is well and good, but at the same time, we need to actively advocate for help for the Sudanese people. Safe evacuation corridors, open ports, open airports, visa waivers. It's unfathomable for me that if we're fleeing violence, you have to sit and wait for a government office to give you a visa for 2 weeks while people are stranded without water and shelter. So the thing is, we really need to get these points out to the powers that be regarding helping the Sudanese people manage this or end this.
It's a good point. I mean, in a context where this is a matter of life and death, it's unthinkable that a visa will stand in the way of someone getting the kind of refuge that they so desperately need. You also mentioned international pressure. Please go ahead. Because I think if we didn't have that visa challenge, we might have left on the first bus to Egypt. Neighboring Egypt, we have family there. Egypt and Sudan are very close as a people, and they're very connected. But just facing that challenge of having to wait, even if we get through the checkpoints that are set up on the roads to Haifa or Port Sudan or the port which is called Ergin. The thing is, we won't be able to stay as a large family in a random place without services, even considering the medical challenges and even without the medical challenges. My friends that undertook this trip, they're traumatized. They're traumatized. Even if there are, healthy, able-bodied people, by the time they reached Cairo, they're saying that we can't even talk about it. We can't even talk about this journey that we've been through. Wow. Really sobering stuff. You spoke about international pressure that's needed, perhaps, as a way to mediate through this war. Joe Biden, who's the President of the United States, of course, has already gestured at the idea of introducing sanctions that are targeted at specifically those who are responsible for the conflict itself. The difficulty, of course, with things like sanctions is that they have unintended consequences. Their effects sometimes reach way beyond their intended target. Already you're struggling with shortages of things like food and other medical supplies. Are sanctions in that context the answer?
You know, I hear that sanctions might be the answer, but the Sudanese people have lived under sanctions under al-Bashir for 30 years. Only the people were impacted. I mean, officials, they always found a way around these sanctions. Right. In the end, even for us, this is the challenge that we're facing. People that are fleeing, they don't even have access to their money because a lot of the banking sanctions haven't been drawn back. So the thing is, targeted sanctions, they might work in some context, but I don't see how it will help us right now. Another very serious shortage, whether in Khartoum and maybe in other states, is the fuel shortage. So what we have is right now people aren't able to either travel by land to other areas, safer areas, or get their necessities. Or, for example, like the telecom companies are starting to get out of service one after another due to the fuel shortage, and people can't operate standby generators. So the thing is, it's getting dire, and the thing is, if this doesn't stop, it's only going to get worse, because whatever supplies that are right now in Khartoum and around Sudan, they're going to end soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're coming through loud and clear to us here in Johannesburg. Hopefully the rest of the world is also listening as you speak out about the situation you're faced with on the ground. Really appreciate your time and bravery. Tagreed Abdin is a resident in Khartoum, speaking to us there as the war continues, despite those peace talks, we're told, currently underway in Saudi Arabia. Tagreed, once again, thanks very much indeed.